Welcome everyone to the April meeting of the Hadley Public Schools. Do I have a motion to call the meeting to order?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, very good. And let's start with adjustments to the agenda. Annie, do you want to take us through it?
Sure. Chris has a conflict at 6:30, another school committee meeting. So I have asked if possible that following Park and Rec's presentation, we move right into business manager. I'm sorry, right after rural aid. Chris will also be here, so we can talk about rural aid. And then we do the business manager reports, and then we'll go back to the regular agenda. And Jim, I don't foresee this happening. For some reason, things were getting really behind schedule. I might ask if the business manager reports. He just needs to be out of here by 6:30. So if we could be mindful of that.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with public comment. As a reminder, public comment should be kept to 3 minutes, should be pertinent to items on the agenda. We do not directly respond to items that are brought up in public comment and may refer to them or bring them up for future discussion. And Christine just arrived, Annie, so if you wouldn't mind making her co-host, that would be great. All right, so let's begin by just calling on open comment. If you have a comment to make, please go ahead and raise your digital hand and we will call you in the order in which we see you. And we'll just give it a couple of minutes for open comment. Okay, seeing no hands raised, we will proceed with the business items. So first up is the Hopkins Academy field trip state science fair to Boston. Ms. Duncan.
Hi. Yes, I would like to take my STEM innovations class. We had 4 kids qualify for the state science high school science fair this year in Boston, which is held on the Saturday, May 5th, but we're going down the day before, May 4th. We would like to go down and stay overnight in Boston to make sure that we're ready for the next morning, because it's an early morning versus trying to travel that morning, which I think would be a really early morning for them. And then we come back on the Saturday right at 2 o'clock. They don't have awards that day. They're actually doing awards virtually on the following Tuesday. So we'll come right home after the judging on that Friday on May 5th, right at 2 o'clock. Does anybody have any questions about this field trip?
Well, first of all, this sounds like a lot of fun. I've been to MIT's science fair for high school youths, and I think they're going to have such a great experience. Thank you so much for spearheading this. I don't have any other questions. I'll throw it open to the team for questions.
I've always loved the science fair, and our kids have always loved the Boston trip for the science fair. So I'm in full support of that.
Yeah, 100%. I know it's not a lot per student, but if there was a situation in which a student didn't have the money to cover the trip, are there funds available? That was my only question.
We did, the Board of Trustees gave us money at the beginning of the school year to help finance this trip. The hotels, I think it's like graduation weekend for some schools. So the hotels were pretty expensive. And when I asked for them to contribute to the costs, I said, if anybody couldn't afford it, to let me know and we would cover those costs. If so, it was just the ask to try to help not empty the science fair account out completely from the leftover from the money we didn't spend on supplies. So almost all of it's going to the trip because the hotel. We cut money also. We didn't have to, not have to get a bus versus driving out. So that also helped the costs.
Perfect. Thank you.
I imagine the parents are going with you.
We do have parents coming out to meet me out there.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah, sounds like a good trip. So you'll know the Tuesday after, you said. They don't actually
Yeah,
stay.
they'll have a virtual meeting the Tuesday after. And we did have 2 students place at the regional fair, one winning a first place, which was really great. So we're excited. It's all new. This is the first time we've done a high school fair as a group in many, many years. We've done the middle school fair a lot, but not the high school fair. So I'm super excited. They give a lot of money away in scholarship. So I'm going to encourage these kids. 2 of them are 9th graders. I encourage them to do it again when they're juniors and seniors.
That's great.
A wonderful
No
thing.
questions, but super cool. And let us know if any of the students fare out really well. It sounds really exciting.
Well,
Terrific. So this needs a vote, correct, Annie? Terrific. Do I hear a motion to approve the trip for the State Science Fair in Boston?
So moved.
Terrific.
Seconded.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay. The motion passes. Thank you.
great.
All right,
Thank you
good
so
luck.
much.
Take
Have
care.
fun.
Excellent. We're going to move next to the Park and Rec proposed renovation of the Hadley Elementary School fields. Joining us here from Park and Rec is Jim Shea. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you very much.
Jim, and if I could just let, hopefully, school committee and members of the public, if you are linked into, which is on our website, the town, if you're linked into the live agenda, we've updated with the documents that Mr. Shea will be referencing. So linked into the live agenda, item 4B, the proposal and visual of the field.
Well, good evening and thank you for having me, number one. Number two, I've been working on this project for a few years. We have a severe shortage of space for the girls to practice softball. And we have a couple of brand new fields at the high school, but they're usually not done with them until 6, 7 o'clock at night. And to have the U12 softball team starting practice then is kind of tough. So I've been looking all over town, and somebody gave me the idea to look at a map that was, near the school. There was some land available. They wanted me to buy it. And while I was looking at the map, I realized all the time I've been there, there's 3 fields out behind Hadley Elementary. And there is spot that I could potentially put a 4th field. So I had gone to the state, and Representative Carey has got me money to build this field. And initially we were going to try and do it somewhere else. But I think this is actually the best spot for it. I have spoken with Principal Dowd. I have spoken with Jeff Mish, and I have spoken with Superintendent McKenzie, and all of them seem to be on board. It would make it a lot easier for us because we don't have to do parking. We don't have to worry about drainage. We don't have to worry about all these other hurdles that I would have to go through to build a completely off-site place. There's parking there. The drainage isn't an issue. So the plan is, if you guys look at that map that I so crudely drew up, there's the field 1. If you're standing behind the elementary school, field 1 is to your right. It's the big field. That's where the majors play. To the left is field 3. So field 3 would actually be the softball field. Because if you have the 2 outfields, it's U12, so it's got to be a minimum depth of 225 feet. So with that being said, you can't put them the short way on the field. You have to put them the long way on the field. So both outfields, because the majors field 1, they set up a fence in the outfield every spring to have a place where you could potentially hit a home run. And if that were out in the field, you could not then have the 225-foot depth that you would need for the U12 softball field size. So that's why what I want to do is refurbish field 3 and completely skin it, because that's what is required for girls softball. And then build a new field 3, which would be the new field 4 over in the other corner. And that would be where the rookies play, which is the little kids. And not only do they not need a huge outfield, they barely need an infield because the balls don't get hit very far. So I think that we could put it in there. So we would use the fencing for the backstop for field 3 for the softball field, and then we would put a new field in and new backstop for field 3. And that's basically it. It would just add a 4th field out there, and I would try and get it done this summer while school is not in session. So it wouldn't be a distraction or, you know, or try and get it done on a week where there is a vacation in the fall, or I wouldn't want to impact school at all. So I would try and get it done this summer. And I need your all permission for that.
Great. Jim, thank you so much for bringing this to our attention. The needs of the softball team have always, it's always been an underserved issue, if you will. So I'm really glad that you're raising this. And I do have a couple of questions. Number one is, will the presence of the rookie field in that corner impede, the skin to grass, say, impede in any way the use of that soccer space, soccer field?
It won't. We're going to have the field basically where it is. It would be moved a little bit more if you're standing at the back of the elementary school to the right, because it's not going to be a huge infield. So you could play in dirt if you had to, but with the measurements, I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Okay, very good. And my second question is less of a question and more of a comment. I believe in that corner there is a foxhole, or at least it's been said to me for people walking across that they've seen fox spotted there, and a little hole. We don't get a lot of activity in that corner. I think Cal Ripken has used it in the past as a batting cage area.
Yep, the batting cage is there now, but it's broken. So we're replacing those pieces.
And so that corner doesn't see a lot of usage. My suggestion would be to look for that foxhole if there is one, and I just wouldn't want a rookie field to be that close to a fox den.
As soon as I leave this meeting, I'm going to my son's scrimmage against the other Hadley team, and I will take a look.
Thank you. Other questions from my teammates?
So first off, Jim, I love this energy. This is awesome. That, just thinking about how long it took us to do the other fields. This is great. But it doesn't sound like you need to do major construction. So that's pretty nice. I couldn't find the map. I don't know if somebody's got a link they could shoot me, but I can't seem to find it on the website. But so those were my questions, right? So would this require the dismantling of the existing batting cage?
No, we will keep the batting cage where it is. And like I kind of just stated, but not explained, through the winter, a bunch of snow and ice got on it. And then we got a pretty big windstorm, and that batting cage has been there for some time now. So the weight of the snow and ice on it with the wind actually made some of the, so you have pipes that connect, and the joints that connect each pipe actually rusted and snapped. So John has gone online. I found him a couple of different websites where you can order the joints for that, and then we'll be able to put it back up. So no, we're not going to impact the that at all. It's just that, for the past, I don't know how many years, I can tell you, I talked to Steve Higgins about it, and he said when his son, Liam's in college now, but when his son was there and when his daughter was there, they were always trying to find time for the girls to be able to go out and practice. And they always had to play around Cal Ripken's schedule because, it is maintained by the Cal Ripken coaches, families, everything. And so they kind of get first choice at it, which I understand. And these girls are going to have their own field. It's going to be maintained by their coaches, their parents, and they need a place of their own to play, and without having to ask anybody for permission. And, it ebbs and flows, I guess, over the past few years. I don't have a daughter, but from everybody I talk to, they'll have 10 girls that want to play 1 year and 25 another year, and they've had as many as 35 before. So we're in that area where they actually have a good amount of girls and they need a space to play. And
Yeah,
so that's why
great.
I'm trying to get it done. Mara Breen came to me and said, is there anything we can do? And I said, let me think about it. And, I called Representative Carey and he said, yeah, I think we should be able to do something. And he got me the money, and then we actually got it extended from this this June 30th, where the money's going to expire until next June 30th. So,
Way to go on securing the money, Jim.
oh,
Uh,
yeah, it was all Dan. It wasn't me. I just asked.
Do you mind my asking how much he was able to secure?
He got us $100,000.
That's substantial. That's pretty impressive.
And it is. And I think that we're going to be able to do both of these fields without much contribution from Park and Rec, but we have money that was gifted to Park and Rec back in the early 80s. And it actually, over time, people have forgotten about it for years and never touched it, and it became a significant amount of money. And so anything that were to go over, we would be able to, make sure that it got completed and it didn't just sit there, not being able to be used. But with some of the issues that I ran into up in North Hadley, it would have cost considerably more than what we had. And the first ask, I went back to Dan and asked if we could get more money. And he said, that's going to be tough right now. But I'll get you an extension. And I said, perfect. So then we came up with this idea. And I think we'll be able to get both of those fields will look fantastic. There'll be a brand new field for the little kids, and the softball will have their own place, and we'll make it as nice as we possibly can.
That sounds terrific. Christine.
No, I'm just, obviously having boys, I didn't realize that we actually didn't have a designated softball field. And I think it's fantastic that you're doing this. I think it's well overdue. I know, we've struggled with feeder programs before, and there's no reason why there shouldn't be a designated junior softball league. So great job.
Thank you. I looked around. There used to be a field up next to the old North Hadley Hall there. There used to be a field. Yeah. There used to be a field at Zaterka Park. There used to be a field between the old school and Hopkins. And I looked and I believe standing in the corner behind the abandoned building there, and going towards Cumberland Farms, there's only 152 feet. And going the other way towards the secondary exit out of Hopkins is 164 feet. And the minimum needs to be 225 feet. And so, I looked at I looked at spots over next to the dump. I looked at spots everywhere. And this makes the most sense, because if I did it at the dump over near the transfer station, it'd probably be $500,000, because I'd have to put a road in. I'd have to get stumps out. There's vent pipes from where it used to be a dump. There's all sorts of issues. And I think this makes the most sense.
Yeah, I don't see why there should be, 4 for or 3 for baseball and no designated for softball. I think that's especially when field 3 was always the last utilized field whenever we did have baseball. Lots of times that was never even used. So
Yep.
I think that's a great idea.
I agree. And I really like the idea of it also being at the school. I do feel that our girls deserve to be at the school when our boys are able to play at the school. So I think I'm glad that you're looking at this. And I'm fully supportive. And I just want to reiterate what Humira said. Just because when I look at the picture of proposed field 4 for the little guys, it definitely goes into the soccer field, which is utilized regularly during soccer season. So I'm guessing maybe that I just want to, again, I'm in support of it as long as it's not impeding on another sport's ability to to play on their full field.
Yep. Well, I mean, you would still be able to play there. I think that at the very least, when I went out there and measured it with one of those walking wheels, and depending on what size field you make, and it varies, it has to be a minimum of this size to a maximum of that size for those fields, because Steve and I have gone out there the past couple of years and lined the fields ourselves, up until this year when we actually found somebody who's better at it than we are. So we paid them to do it. And there's a possibility, if my math isn't perfect, that there could be a little bit of dirt in one of the corners, but it's not going to be it's not going to be a third of the field.
Okay.
And that's only on the big field. For the smaller, the U8 team, that'll be more towards the school, and that fits well in between the field 1 and current field 3.
Okay. And I mean, have you explored, like, if you like, and I don't know, because I haven't walked out there lately to know what else is behind here. Like, I don't know even if a batting cage is movable, like would it be possible? Like, if you were able to move it back a little bit and move the batting cage, or that's just not feasible?
No, and you know what, when I go out there tonight, I'll talk to John about that. That is part of, I mean, since it's all torn apart right now, I mean, I guess it would kind of come down to what you folks thought about it and what Principal Dowd thought about it, if we were to move it behind the Park and Rec and the Cal Ripken sheds. If we were to, you know, we could put it on the exact opposite side of the field as well, from where it is now, in between field 2 and 3.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea, Jim. I think
Yeah.
you could, I think it'd get more use if it were closer to some of the fields. I mean, now that we're talking about putting a field right next to it, it might get more use. I think
Yeah.
that's one of the challenges. It's all the way at the end. A lot of people don't go down there, so.
Yeah, we see a lot of people there. You know, not even, actually, I went there to fix the lock on the PTO shed, and the high school kids were there early in the spring practicing themselves.
Oh, that's good.
You know, no
Nice.
coaches. There was
Yeah.
just a bunch of kids out there, and they were practicing. They had up one of the screens. One of them was pitching, and you know, all the other kids were hitting. And you know, it's certainly something, we never had anything like that, even in Northampton when I was growing up. And it's great to have that kind of stuff available for these, you know, student athletes to be able to use.
Definitely.
So I'm in support of it. I think it sounds like, again, that was my only concern. If there's a way to kind of rearrange things so that we don't impede on anybody's field and try to minimize anybody's sport or whatnot, right? And if you
Yep.
can move things around, and I trust that you, Jim and John and Principal Dowd can find a way to make that work so that everything can fit. And thank you for thinking of our girls.
Absolutely. I'll push it back as far as we can
Yeah.
to the property line while staying in regulation to,
Yeah.
you know, permanent structures like a backstop and fencing being, you know, I don't know I don't know if that's commercial. I don't know what it is, but I know residential is 15 feet. So, I mean, that's easily doable, putting the fence there. And then there'll still be enough room for the parents. But, you know, one of the other reasons we wanted to put it there is there's often times where you have 2 children in school, and we have boys and girls in these families, and the parents have to be at both games or both practices or, you know, whatever. And it just makes more sense to have both of the fields there rather than one there and one up in North Hadley.
Mhm.
Jim, the other thing that occurs to me is you're Park and Rec, correct? You have
Yes,
a board position with Park and Rec, and Park and Rec oversees the soccer offering on
correct.
that field. So you wouldn't want to do anything that would harm or hurt your own prospects. So I'm sure you'll be a good steward of both the soccer field as well as the baseball and softball fields.
Exactly.
And I just wanted to add, Jim, thank you so much for sending the visual and also the proposal. I would say it'd be helpful if the school committee voted their support with the understanding that what I would like to do, Jim, is have the legal counsel for the school committee just look over the proposal. Sometimes attorneys wordsmith things in ways that are important to them that I do not understand. But
Yeah.
if they generally are in support of the idea, they could express that, and then we can, whatever wordsmithing I get, we can look over that.
Yeah,
From
whatever
there, that makes sense.
wordsmithing you get, I will sign off on. I just want to make everybody happy. I'm not trying to, push anything past anybody. I just want to get these girls a place that they can play and have their own, that they don't have to ask permission to use.
I especially appreciate, Jim, that you don't have a softball player of your own and that
Yeah.
you are championing this cause. That's really important in my view. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So Annie, you would like us to have a vote of support for the overall project. Okay, do I hear a motion to support the Park and Rec proposal for the renovation of the HES fields?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Seconded.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Support passes unanimously. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jim. It's awesome.
Good
Thank you,
job,
Jim.
Jim.
Thank you. And if I could beg your, for one more second, I know most of you probably already know her, but Amy Jennings is our new Park and Rec Director. And we're pretty excited to have her. She's already starting to do some great things, and I just wanted her here, so she was part of the process. And I did it myself instead of throwing her in and not knowing all of the answers to some of the questions you might have, so.
Welcome aboard, Amy.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I keep moving. The gym lights keep going off. So if I'm making anyone dizzy, I apologize.
No worries at all. All right,
So-
very
Thank
good. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you,
So
brother.
Superintendent McKenzie, will you be in touch after the council looks it over?
Yes, I will.
And okay, and just
Yep.
let me know any changes and I'll swing by anytime, and
Perfect.
we'll put it in front of our board and just say, hey, listen, I'm gonna go in and sign off on this if everybody's good with it. And once they're good with it, I'll come in and sign it, and then hopefully we can get started.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you,
Thank you
Jim.
very much for your help. I appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jim.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next order of business. We are discussing the return of fiscal year 23 rural aid to town, plus the
Yes.
fiscal year 23 surplus to the town.
Yeah.
And
Yes. So we are looking at returning to the town. I believe we may have spoken about this previously, but if not, rural aid is a part of the Chapter 70 formula. It's not included in, typically not included, like we're notified of what it will be after we've already set the budget. Chris will be doing the financials after this. We are in a good position this year. And part of the reason, one of the things that's contributing to us being in a good position this year is, as you know, we've secured a number of competitive grants, and in some cases, the grant coordination, our employees do that work. So I might do some of the grant coordination work, and we charge then a small portion of my time to the grant. So one, because we had not allocated a specific expense to rural aid, we learned about our rural aid amount after we had passed our budget, and also because we've been successful in getting grants. And as you know, when we bring a budget before the select board and the select board approves our request for local contribution, we have no way of knowing what competitive grants we will apply for, will be available, we will apply for, and we will receive. So they trust us, and we appreciate that with their resources, and they're generous to us. And I would recommend, because we don't have a specific expense associated with rural aid at this time, that we return that money to the town as part of surplus and give $41,445 back to them at the conclusion of FY20.
I think it's a great idea, Annie. Thank you for thinking of it. I have no questions. I'm going to throw it open to my colleagues for any questions or comments. Okay, seeing none, this is a motion that needs to be approved. Very good. Do I hear a motion to return the fiscal year 23 rural aid back to the town in the amount of $41,445?
Seconded.
And who first did that motion?
It was Tara.
Me.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Annie.
And
Thank
then
you,
we'll go to business, of course, then to Chris too. We've been messing around with this for a while. And then to Chris for business manager report.
That's right.
And lucky guy, doubleheader school committee tonight. Oh, I envy you, my friend.
Welcome,
all-
Chris.
Oh, wait a minute. There we go. I forgot to turn on the camera. Yes, 2 meetings tonight, but next week I have 6 town meetings. So if you think 2 school committee is tough, try that one. So anyway, I have 3 reports for you tonight. The first one is just the general expense report. As you scroll through it, you might see some lines that look a little peculiar. One of those might actually be the superintendent's salary. And that is just because I did some of the grant transfers from her salary, as she just mentioned to you. So it actually looks a little bit lower than you would typically expect it to be at this point of the year. There are a couple of other items that we have, some expenses that we will move from the budget into the grant. Special ed expenses are one of those items, but a good portion of the expenses have been moved now. So as I've done in the past, basically, I really have no concerns again about the balance that we have for the rest of the year. We obviously have a big payroll coming up in June. That's the one that pays for the summer expenses, but we have sufficient funds to cover that as well. So, we will finish the year with the amount that Anne had recommended we give back to the town. We'll take care of that, and should be no problems whatsoever. I don't know if anybody has any questions on the expense report.
Questions for me? Anyone else? Okay,
Okay, then I have the grants report. As you can see, the grants are getting spent down a little bit more than the last time you saw this. So there are, as I mentioned, still some more transfers to go. We have some things like the ESSER 2 grant that's pretty much winding down. We'll have that one done by the end of this year. And the ESSER 3, a good portion of ESSER 3 is for HVAC upgrades that we have not. We're still waiting on the results of the study of Hopkins to get back to us on that. So until we do, that's when we'll look into how we can use those funds for those improvements. But everything else, as always, these grants will be spent down fully by the end of the grant period. ESSER 3 carries over for another year or so, so we certainly have time for that. And circuit breaker is another one. It's technically not a grant, but I just included in here because it's kind of money we receive from the state for special ed expenses, and we can carry that amount forward into next year. We typically do carry some of it into the next year, and it kind of serves as an emergency fund in case we had some kind of large special ed expense that was unexpected. But that will be spent down to the amount. We can only carry forward the amount that we got this year. So, which is going to be around $100,000. So we'll carry that amount forward and the rest will be spent. I don't know if anyone has any questions on the grants.
I have no questions. Anyone else? Okay,
Okay, and then the final report is the revolving account report. Last time I presented this, it was, we were missing some deposits. So if you look at, say, the lunch account from January to February to March, you can see how it had a big drop in February because the deposits weren't received yet. Now it's back up because we have all of them posted through March 31st. So looking pretty good with that. The preschool account, that's been really kind of holding its own. I mean, we started the year with 91,000. We still have about 88. So that's pretty good. It will take a hit in June when we pay those 4 extra payrolls, but that account's done really pretty well. And as the Hadley kids as well, up to about a $30,000 balance there. So that's another one that didn't have the deposits posted in February, but now they've been posted in March. So, and school choice, we just, we had some expenses that we charged to school choice. That's why you only see it bump up from about $1,890,000 to $1,901,000. We actually get about $60,000 a month for that, but you know, we utilized some of it in the past month, so kind of brought it down a little bit. I do not anticipate us using the entire budgeted amount this year that we budgeted for. So that balance, it will come down because we will use some of it, but not anywhere near the amount that that we budgeted. So that's good news.
So at the end of the fiscal year, we'll vote to return that back to school choice. Is that? how
Well,
that-
what will happen is it will just remain in school choice. I just won't charge any expenses to it, or, you know, as many expenses as we anticipated. So the balance will remain up. Yep.
Very good.
And then we would use for the community what isn't used in school but choice for the operating budget this year. As you know, in our 10-year capital plan, just based on this year's dollars, we've earmarked a number of projects for school choice funds. So we always do every year in the budget up to a certain amount. If we were to exceed that amount in school choice, we have to come back to the school committee and ask for permission. If we spend less, it remains in school choice. In this case, would be part of the funding that we would contribute to those projects. We've earmarked school choice as revenue for in our capital plan.
I'm sorry, Chris, I missed, why are we spending less? Why do we not need to access it?
Part of it, quite honestly, is what Ann had mentioned earlier about the number of grants that we've received. We utilize those funds, in my opinion, very wisely, in that we offset certain salaries to it, and that basically bumps up what we have available and allows us to utilize the school choice money for things like, you know, large expenses like building improvements, which we will be using over the next several years to do the Hopkins repairs that we reviewed a few months back.
All right. Any other questions for Chris about this report or any of the reports? Very good. All right, Chris, onward to your next school committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a
Thanks,
good
Chris.
night.
All right, so we're moving back to the presentation and discussion items. We are on item D, the 2023 accountability targets. Annie.
Yes, so if you click on that link in your agenda, what I would call your attention to, if you have the first, it should automatically open the first tab of Hadley Elementary School. I'll quickly take you through all of them, not each cell. But really, I just want to call your attention, that first tab, to column F, where you see everywhere in green shows that the change, that average change in the aggregate, the change in the aggregate scaled score for students. Some cases it's negative, but all the greens are, it's positive, it's greater than 0. If you look toward the bottom of that, you see that across the entire Commonwealth for non-high school schools, so grades 3 through 8, you have a total of 1,339 schools that tested ELA, non-high school. This is 2022 MCAS. Only 48 schools had a change of greater than 0. And they actually, I shouldn't say schools as much as, schools. So I really want to call your attention to how well Hadley Elementary did. And we can't know for sure why this is. I do wonder if the decision that the school committee made, and in collaboration with the union and the school administration, to open our schools. And also we see that the students, almost every group, where in the state, some of these, what they refer to at the state as subgroups, such as high needs, students with disabilities, and some of these groups, very few of them statewide made progress. Actually, the average decline was very great for these groups. And if you recall, our policy was to, from day one, the elementary school open for the neediest students, and shortly thereafter open for the remaining students. In addition, I don't know if that contributed, but that's one thing that set us apart from a number of other districts. Also, we have invested heavily, as you know, in multi-tiered systems of support. investing in Michelle. And I think you're seeing what that's getting us. I'm just, every time I look at this screen, I say, wow, only 48 had greater than 0. And all of those groups that had the elementary in ELA and math and science had improvements in average scaled scores that were greater than 0. When you look at Hopkins Academy, we don't see as much gain. We do see in science that there was improvement across the board in high school. You do see that our students there, we didn't see the same gains. I'll say that again, didn't see the same gains. We did have a different model in high school. We were open at Hopkins Academy, but it wasn't ideal, right? We know that, but it was kind of, we did the best that we could. There was a remote in place kind of model that we did there. And we have seen statewide far more decline in some of the upper grades than we saw in the lower grades. And district-wide, if you're either in recovery mode, which most of the state is, or you're in something that they call forward mode, you're moving forward, so district-wide. This is perhaps, I'm pleased everywhere we see green, but I am really pleased that in terms of district-wide, our neediest students are considered on a forward path. So this group that the state calculates as the group that was previously the lowest performing group actually is on a forward path and showed improvement. So I just wanted to bring this to your attention. I'm pleased with all of the efforts of the students and the staff and the family across the board. And I also do feel as though these investments, which we started building at the elementary school, and we are building up and out, investments in multi-tiered systems support and comprehensive social emotional learning, strategies and curriculum. I think that we're definitely seeing some of the benefits of that hard work, and I hope that it continues. And I just wanted to celebrate our teachers, the elementary teachers, when they saw us were thrilled, as they should be. So I wanted to celebrate their hard work and the students' hard work.
Thank you, Annie. This is very encouraging. Congratulations to you, as well as all the teachers and students who invested their time and energy. This is really awesome data. Throwing it open to my colleagues to also comment.
Very proud of our scores. I think that it just shows that, you know, our kids bounced back well, our teachers performed well under incredible circumstances that were unforeseen. And, you know, I think that compared to the rest of, you know, schools that I've been hearing about, I think we've definitely shown how strong we are.
I agree. Congratulations. And thank you to Annie and all the administration and the teachers, all teachers, support staff, everybody. Just, it's such a collaborative environment amongst the staff and administration. And I really just, I know it was really tough in the beginning of COVID and as kids started getting back to school. And I just feel as though our teachers were really supportive and on board with ensuring the best possible environment and the best possible learning environment for our kids. And they really showed how dedicated they are. And I'm just really appreciative for all of our staff at both schools.
Thank you.
Tara, I had some things I was going to say, Tara, but you just said them all. So I'm going to just reiterate all of the things you just said. Just kudos to everyone involved at both of those schools, because we know how hard they've had to work, how they always work hard, but especially over the last 3 or 4 years, the challenge it's been to see this work pay off is impressive.
That's great. When you
Yeah,
manage it,
help me
thank you.
understand.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would just say some of those numbers. What does it mean to go from a 500 to 501, or just what are they actually assessing? I don't need big
Scaled
details.
score, and they take everybody's scaled score within that group. So that subject in that particular group. And then they find the average scale score. So they're expecting, so in 2019, This was the average scaled score for that group. And then in 2020, we didn't do the MCAS. And in 2021, they also didn't use that marker. They waited until 2022. Because even though, I'm trying to think, I think we did MCAS in 21. Now I can't remember. Even if we did, the administration would have been so odd. Maybe we didn't do it because some schools were still closed. And so they just take the average for each group. Everyone's scaled score, all scaled scores divided by the number of students. And what they want to see is forward motion. That's what we want to see also.
And then when they say recovery, are we now assessing things recovering to a pre-pandemic level? What does recovery mean?
So recovery means that you have up to 4 years, depending on how far away you are from your 2019 score, to recover, to get at least where you were in 2019. So if you, depending on how far away, they take the distance, they divide, here's where you were in 19, here's where you are in 2022, take that distance, and they divide that by 4, or depending on how much of a distance there is, they give you so many years to recover. So recovery is recovering back to, getting back to the minimum, the average scale score that you had in 2019. Forward means that you exceeded that score, met that score, you were close enough. So that's what they're referring to recovering.
Okay, thanks.
And they really, this is really all the principals and the teachers and all the support staff, like you said, really, when you manage talent, it is a joy, not a job. This stuff just makes my heart sing.
Annie, I have one question that Paul reminded me of when he was asking that, and this might be just my sheer ignorance. This is all electronic now. Why does it take us so long to get this data back? Like even student scores, it takes a long time to get it back. Can you just, do you know why?
I don't. And I like the civility and sweetness with which you asked that question is the question. And honestly, the contract that right now the Department of Elementary, they're going out to bid to contract right now on a test administrator. So the contract they have with the current folks who do MCAS, I think they're out to bid right now. They're not looking at changing. Remember, there's a time that they were thinking of doing an adaptive test, similar to some other states. They're not thinking of changing, but they may change vendors that could potentially positively affect the speed with which we get the data back. I don't know why. And I know the folks at DESE, everybody's working hard, but I'm sure that's something they will be eager to improve upon as they shop for a new vendor.
Thank you.
All right. Congratulations again. I'm going to keep us moving. And we are going on to item E, the 2023-2024 school calendar. Annie.
Yes, just some changes to point out. So right now we're looking, which if you look at the July box, we will not be in school in July, but Hadley Elementary School, we will hammer out probably a memorandum of understanding with the union and ask the school committee to then sign that. But teachers at Hadley Elementary School, a committee got together and they would like to move to trimesters. As you know, Hadley Elementary School has standards-based report cards. These are very labor intensive for our teachers, and they give a tremendous amount of information. But teachers have asked that they move to a trimester system. And I believe before I got here, we may have had a trimester system at Hadley Elementary School many years ago. We also get data from our formative assessment data. So we still have plenty of data that we're sharing with parents. Just asked to pilot moving back to, I think, back to a trimester system. So you'll see that Hadley Elementary School is on trimesters. Hopkins Academy will remain on a quarter system. Another change is 3 days of professional development at the beginning of the year for our staff. Normally we have 2 and we distribute the remaining 3 out through the year. But because we did our first cohort of folks at Hopkins Academy receiving restorative justice, professional development and restorative justice. And now they get an advanced training, and we have a couple other cohorts coming on. We need 3 days at the beginning of the year, and Hadley Elementary School will receive some follow-up from our professional development in March on culturally proficient practices in the classroom, but really specific to young children, younger grades. Is that how that looks and sounds like in practice? Can sometimes be very different for young children. And other than that, it looks a lot like a standard calendar. Oh, I'm sorry, one other thing. You'll notice that there are delayed starts, but there are not early releases for teacher collaborations. There's a lot of discussion about this, and the teachers weighed in. And the folks at the elementary school said, which is different at the elementary than it is at Hopkins Academy, grade level teams already have a daily shared preparation period. And the elementary teachers said, what we're gaining from this once a month early release, what we're gaining from that does not seem worth what we feel like we're losing with much younger children in terms of time. Hopkins Academy teachers do not have preparations that line up. I mean, we try to do things like team time, but as Chris could say, even sometimes when the schedule goes off or somebody has to teach something they're not expected to teach normally, it's harder for them to find that collaboration time. So we'll continue with these delayed starts, but we won't have Hadley Elementary early next year. Of course, the elementary teachers may come back to us next year and say, you know, now that we've compared the two options, we want to return to that. But right now, they said we'd like to try next year without it. And then, other than that, Hadley Elementary open house at the beginning of the year, Hopkins Academy open house at the end of the year. And I think that's it. Graduation on the 31st and a last day of students, assuming no snow days, on June 13th. I'm going to shoot for that next year. That's my goal. There's not going to have snow days.
You're going to control for the weather.
I am.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for taking us through that. It seems pretty straightforward. I do not remember a time when we were on a trimester schedule, but I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Okay. I may have made that up completely because I see Chris shaking her head too. So maybe we never were. Maybe we just heard the elementary teachers talking about it for several years. So
I'm regarding the delayed start time for another year. I wonder if over the summer we could have a chance to revisit how the joint busing has been going during those periods, what we've learned, what we want to do even better next year. Just an update on that would be great.
absolutely.
Aside from that, I have no other questions. How about you all, team?
I was going to ask about the delayed start question that you pointed out, but nothing else.
And I had a couple questions, and Annie, you answered one of them because I was going to ask about the delayed start early release. So that helps with the early release. The delayed start, you guys already answered, so that's good. The two other questions that I have, and I'm sorry if I just was spaced out, but so the trimester thing at ETS would just mean they'd have 3 report cards instead of the 4 report cards.
Correct.
So all the the math and ELA testing that they do throughout the year, why can't I think of the names? The FAST
Yeah.
data and that all remains the same. They'll still
Yes.
test those data the same. It's
Yeah.
just 3 report cards instead of
Mhm.
4.
Correct.
Okay. And so
Okay.
that's kind of like unanimous. Teachers are really thinking that that's going to be productive. And then
Yes.
we'll reevaluate that at the end of next year if we can, make sure that indeed worked
Yes.
out well for
Yep.
all parties. And then the only other question was about the open houses, which you pointed out. And so I was just curious. I'll be at the open house on Thursday. I'll be there for PTO, but I was just curious how staff and Principal Camuso felt it was fairing out having it in the spring. And then timing wise, as far as students considering transitioning from Hopkins, elementary school to the high school versus other schools. So timing wise, that seems to still work out best in the spring.
Yes, so what we like about the spring is one, we're hoping it's not only for current students, but also for prospective students. We also find that parents seem to be more interested in programming, which makes sense to learn about that in the spring, like what is my child registering for next year? Not the ship has already sailed, so what are you doing right now? Like what have they chosen for the upcoming year? We think that it'll hopefully we can keep building on it as a community event. We'll have a couple of different food truck options. I also believe there'll be a baseball game that night. So we're hoping to draw people in for that. But yes, it allows hopefully parents from Hadley Elementary, so they don't have to pick an open house. They're not on the same night now. Parents who have sixth graders who want to, everybody is welcome. And parents can learn about these different programs, early college, our program of studies, innovation pathways, internships, and athletics should be in full display also.
So for like somebody going into from sixth grade to seventh grade, that would be like from our school. So I get it, the appeal from other districts as well, but from our school, kids that are kind of on the fence whether or not they want to go somewhere else or stay within the district, that gives them enough time to decide that as well? Or do they?
Yes, please understand. Yeah, so please, thank you for underscoring that. Of course, yes, please. Everyone is welcome. We have other things that we have students do, like step up day, but those are that's for the students during the school day. This really, we strongly encourage. All are welcome. There
Penny,
will be ice cream and a barbecue truck. I'm telling you, I already have the meal mapped out for that night.
that sounds like fun. So that's this Thursday.
That is this Thursday, correct.
If you have some kind of social media post
Yeah,
you could share with us that we could share with our network, that would be great.
I didn't realize it's going on.
Yeah, me neither.
It's really cool. It's awesome.
I'm going to try to
But
attend.
that's not the April open house that Sarah was asking. Okay.
That is,
It is Thursday.
That
this
is.
year's, yeah.
Yep, that's the April open house.
to share. I'm sending this to April right now.
Great, thank you.
Oh,
Okay.
I get it. I thought you meant next April. This April. That's great. Awesome. Okay.
There, yeah, both. Yeah, there we go. And then I have to copy guys. Okay, perfect.
It definitely, I've gone to open houses at Hopkins Academy at the beginning of the year, and this seems to me to be a much more useful endeavor to have it at the end of the year and to use it as an opportunity to take stock of what the students have done, but also show off all that can be done for students coming up through the ranks.
Yes.
Yeah, nicely done. Okay, great. So do you need us to vote on this school calendar?
Yes, please. Yes. I'm glad you're
Okay,
that.
do I hear a motion to approve the 2023-2024 school calendar as presented?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to item F, increase sick days for non-union employees to 15 per year, beginning in the first year of employment. Annie, can you tell us more about that?
Yes, so we have in recent negotiations, there was a difference for our teachers and our education support professionals in the first, in that case, in the first 1 year or 3 years of employment, they accrued less sick time, fewer sick days than people who had worked here longer. But they've requested that all employees accrue the same amount of sick time in our bargaining units. And I'd like to extend that to the non-union employees. Currently, a non-union employee in their first year of employment would accrue sick time 1 day per month. And we'd like to recommend that they accrue 1.25 days per month. So 15 for 12-month employees. And of course, what it is the accrual would go from 1 day per month to 1.25 days per month. It would require a vote. I didn't write the vote at the bottom. So I would prefer that you, since there may be a 10-month employee or a 12-month employee, that we're actually asking that they increase their sick time accrual, monthly accrual to 1.25 days per month.
Annie, thank you for bringing this to our attention. I think, since you've been on the job, I can think of half a dozen times where we've made an explicit effort to bring things in parity across different bargaining units and different roles. And I'm glad to see us consistently continuing to do that, finding those opportunities and creating parity. So thank you. I have no comments, and I'm in favor of it. Any other thoughts or comments?
I support it as well.
Our school can't function without the support of bargaining and non-bargaining units. So I'm absolutely in support of it. And again, I echo Humira. Thank you for always looking into this and equaling the playing field.
And then we do need a vote for this one.
And they're totally worth it.
Indeed, they are.
100%.
Do I hear a motion to increase the sick days for non-union employees to 15 per bargaining in the first year?
I'm sorry, may I amend that motion to increase that non-union employees will accrue sick time at a rate of 1.25 days per month. Could that amendment be accepted?
Yes. So that non-union employees will be accruing sick days at a rate of 1.25 a month. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
So moved. Oh. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent, thank you. Moving on to G, acceptance of donation of office supplies from the Desjardins
Chris and his
family.
wife very
and-
graciously donated wonderful office supplies to Hadley Elementary School. Teachers were happy and thrilled, and the school committee, of course, has the responsibility of accepting donations. Unless you want to tell them no, I'm all back in your band.
Well, how very kind that he thought of us, especially given that he's a school committee member of a whole other school. So
Oh, yeah.
very,
How do you feel about that?
very appreciative of the donation. Thank you to Chris and his family. I would entertain a motion to approve this donation.
Of course. So moved.
Seconded, for sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent.
I kind of wanted to just say no.
No.
Just to be that one
That guy.
person out.
That's for
And
Chris.
dissenting
Yeah, just
vote.
for Chris. Yeah.
Dissenting vote over office supplies. Moving on to item H. Annie, tell us about the updated panorama surveys.
Yes, big thank you to Christine Pichinski for sitting down with me and with Sarah, and Sarah might have been virtual with us some of that time, but we have taken feedback from all kinds of folks, and we sat down and took the panorama data, listened to the feedback from some various people, and we also looked at surveys students were already doing that were administered at the end of MCAS. And we feel as though we have integrated all of that into a survey that gets at what the school committee is looking for, what we're looking for. However, it does mean that we have moved to customizing the survey. Tara, because you had asked this question before, customizing doesn't mean we don't have access to data. Customizing does have implications for translation and interpretation. At the student level, we have the capacity to translate in real time and read to students in languages that we need to do that, if that's required. But because we're moving to customization, we are, Sarah's working with Panorama to kind of get the text side of it sorted out. When we have that, I will then send a copy to the school committee for review. And I will make sure that parents have it also, so that if school committee, when we discuss it in May, that parents have seen it. And if it looks good, then we will administer it to our students. But I feel pretty good about feel really good about where we got. I feel like we listened to people and still are capturing the data that's really important.
Great, thank you, Annie, and thank you, Chris, for spending time with Annie to figure that out. Annie, the changes in the customization won't affect our reporting in any way, will it?
Yeah, no, it's really the biggest thing around customization is going to affect translation and interpretation. With our student body, that is less of a concern, as I said, because we have the capacity to sit with students. We can in real time translate and assist them if we needed to. And we have that capacity on site. We probably may need to think about things when it comes to parents, because we then don't have that capacity, right? So you customize, you don't have the same level of support for translation and interpretation. We may want to consider that when we're looking at our parent survey.
Okay, very good. Do you need us to vote on this?
No, I'll bring you the survey when we'll bring it to the entire school committee once we've sorted it out with Panorama.
Great, thank you. Okay, moving on to item I. We have the first reading of the policy JICFB on bullying prevention. Christine, do you want to take us through this?
So essentially, we just added some language around cyberbullying that gives a little, it makes it clearer, as well as gives an example so that people are aware of what cyberbullying is. We've added some definitions so that is clear also, in terms of the difference between persistent and permanent, where the communicate electronically, it's permanent and it's public. We want people to understand that this doesn't go away. It's can follow you everywhere. And when you're looking at colleges, when you're going for job interviews, we want to just make students aware of what they're doing and the long-term effects it can have. Let's see, so like I said, we gave it examples. We went over just adding or changing some of the language in terms of his or her, we changed it to there. But otherwise it is very the rest of it is pretty much what we've had in the past, which was pretty comprehensive to begin with.
Great, thank you, Christine. I appreciate you taking us through some of those modifications. I'm really glad to see cyberbullying built in, very prevalent and something to definitely be concerned about and build into our bullying prevention strategy. I have no other questions. I look forward to second reading so we can discuss it again. Any other thoughts or comments from the team?
Just reading through it, Christine, there's a bit of repetition on the cyberbullying, the text in red to the black text below it.
The text below it is what was originally there.
Okay.
And so what we aim to do with the new text is to not be too funny, but to bring it into the 21st century.
Right.
When we first looked at this policy, we were kind of reflecting on wire, radio, and electrical, magnetic, and so that the effort was to bring in what is cyberbullying in 2023, but then also, I guess, leaving in what was there prior.
Yeah, no, fair. That old fax machine bullying, that was the worst. Yeah, that's right. Really slow. Yeah.
Yes, point taken. Okay, great. Thank you for that. And we look forward to seeing this again next month. We also have a second reading of the library policy. Ethan?
Yeah, so we looked at this last time. The first form is just the Hopkins Academy Library request for reconsideration of material. That's the form that you would fill out if you'd want to request a text either be removed or you're requesting a text. And then the updated policy that the librarian put together that includes the Library Association's Bill of Rights, and just kind of walks through the selection policy and how they go about choosing books, and then of course the reevaluation or weeding of library resources as well.
Terrific. And the other item that you've provided there is the procedure for.
Right. Yep. The form that you would fill out. Absolutely. Yep.
All right, terrific. Thank you. And so this is second reading, and we would need to take action by voting on it tonight. Is that correct, Annie? Yes, very good. Are there any other thoughts or comments related to this policy before we vote to approve it? Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the new library policy and a request for reconsideration form?
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, terrific. Motion passes. Item H, update Russell School Committee CPA request. Annie.
Right, so this isn't our request. There's a Russell School Committee that did a community survey, put forth a CPA application. And that application is to request funding from the CPA to restore and repurpose Russell School. You can see a copy, I've included a copy of their community survey, their CPA application, and the details of the proposal. The CPA has supported their request, and it will go to town meeting in May. Just wanted to make the school committee aware of it. I want to thank the Russell School Committee for meeting with me, meeting with all kinds of people, asking the community for input, asking our teachers and staff what their thoughts were and ideas about what kinds of things we might do with Russell School, and also ask the entire town. So again, this is not your request that's going before, but I wanted you to have some information about it, because certainly the details of the proposal reference some of the conversations that a committee member had with me and with other folks in the school department.
Annie, would it be helpful for us to be at town meeting and supporting? Is there action that's going to take place at this town meeting in support of a specific proposal that we should be aware of and support?
So this will be on the warrant, their proposal, the CPA application, think about similar to the field. So that CPA application, the amount there. So when they get a town meeting to CPA requests, usually that's after the budget. This certainly will be on the town meeting warrant, and then the town will vote on it just as they did. I would please strongly encourage, I'm glad you said this, town meeting is May, it's the first Thursday in May, so it's coming up, is May 4th. Please, everyone of this body, please come and help vote for our school department budget. So the entire town budget is what we vote on that first week of May.
Okay, terrific. So
Can I just interrupt? Wasn't this changed by the select board? Didn't the CPA reconsider?
Was this changed? I'm sorry if I'm off on this. Perhaps it was.
Well, there was an article in the Gazette this morning, right, where they talked about the select board approved a study, a usability study as the next step, rather than commit to the 1.2 million from CPA.
Okay. Well, then it won't be on town meeting floor.
I don't know. I read it this
apologize.
morning while I was drinking my coffee. Maybe I can Google it while we're chatting and see what it
Okay.
says.
Actually, they're
Regardless,
going over.
it'd be great if you were at town meeting obviously for the town budget,
Right.
but
There,
this may not
there's a
be.
meeting happening tonight after our meeting that is going over all the town warrants.
Okay,
It's a
Okay.
Zoom link.
okay. All right, so maybe it won't be on there. And I did not see that article in the Gazette.
well, things change pretty quickly in our
Yeah,
town.
it says it
So I'm not
replaces
surprised.
$1.2 million warrant with $40,000 feasibility study.
Okay. So, never mind item H.
Right. But point still stands that we should all try to be at town meeting in support of our school budget. I hope to see you all there. And that's Thursday, May 4th, I believe. And that will be at the school at Hopkins in the cafe, I believe.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, moving on to the next item of the agenda. We have, well, student representative reports. We do not have our students with us tonight. If Priscilla Cruz were here, I would congratulate her on an excellent performance at the school play. Tara and I attended. It was quite a wonderful show. And we hope to see our student representatives next month. We've already tackled the business manager reports, school committee reports and discussion. Finance, I have nothing to report. CES, Tara.
Yes, so it was a while back now that I had gone to the CES meeting. The last one was in March. We haven't had one in April, and that was the first meeting that was in person. Actually, they deemed it a hybrid meeting, so nobody was people were still able to log on virtually, but there were actually a great number of us that attended in person, myself included. And I was able to do tours of both of their buildings in Northampton, which was really neat to see. To be honest, they gave a tour of the Heck Academy, which goes through, it's a special school for high school students. That they are going to be making major renovations on the building for. So that was really interesting to see, ask some questions about kind of what they're thinking and how the design flow is going to work for improvement and student safety all the same. So it was really interesting to see, and staff was there and just were really dedicated and committed. So it was really nice to see. And then we did go over and tour the Holly Street buildings as well, and a decent amount of staff were present there as well, to go over any renovations that they were going to do there and get a tour, as it was the first time that there had been an in-person meeting since the start of COVID. And so many of the board members had never stepped foot in that building. So it was quite nice. And they did provide dinner for us as we did our meeting. And so it was just a really nice get together. And even though you spend so much time seeing these people on Zoom, it was really great to see their faces in person, being back in person. And there's great benefits of Zoom, but it felt like you were able to connect a little bit on a much closer level. And it made you feel a little bit more part of it. So CES has Hampshire and Franklin County school districts. There's a lot of representatives and there's a lot of board members that are there. So it's kind of easy on the Zooms to kind of get lost in the water there. So when you're in person, it just feels much more interactive and you can connect with people. So it was really great. I had shared 2 reports with you guys after the meeting, the executive director's report. And then the Hampshire County district usage grid for FY22. I thought it was really interesting. They showed that, and they also had Franklin County, which I don't think I shared, but most importantly, Hampshire County, which includes Hadley. And I find it interesting because I find that every time I go to the meetings, I learn something new about the services that they provide or the great things that they're doing. So I just figured it would be neat for us to be able to look at that and see what they do offer so that we get a better understanding. So I shared it because I just found it a really interesting Excel sheet. That'll be something that they're going to try to do on a yearly basis, put that together just to give people an idea. And it's kind of neat to kind of track and see who uses what services and, what services are available as they get updated. So it was a lot of fun. And I look forward to attending them in person in the future. So.
Perfect. Thank you, Tara. Really appreciate that, and really appreciate when you forward on those documents to us. I agree that Excel spreadsheet of all the things they offer and the things that we Hadley take advantage of and don't is really a nice way to contrast all the breadth of services that they have and that which we do in-house. So thank you for sharing that.
And I will say too, you made me think of it as I was looking through that Excel spreadsheet while we were there in person. I did think to myself as I'm kind of skimming through and looking at, okay, well, what does Hadley utilize versus some of these other districts? And I sat there feeling very proud. Not that any other district is any lower for not for utilizing more, but it just, as I looked through things, I'm like, well, we don't need to use X, Y, and Z because we've got X, Y, and Z set up in house. And it just felt really good to know, we have the support where we need it through CES, but we are able to do so much on our own. So thank you to Annie and your team and the school. It just feels, it feels good when you look at that list and go, oh, we don't need to utilize an outside resource on that because we're so sufficient in our district. So
Very much so. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Karen.
One point I'd like to make, I find our Zoom meetings to be incredibly valuable and efficient to for a variety of different reasons that I won't go into now. But it reminds me that we haven't had a summer retreat in about a year and a half, and I really valued our time together when we were in person. We were able to meet outdoors, and it might be nice to think ahead to a time during the summer where we might come together for an extended period of time to think more strategically about the next couple of years. So Annie, maybe you could do some thinking about when that might be and what kinds of things we might discuss, especially in light of some of the infrastructure things that we want to tackle and the energy projects that we want to take on, and perhaps even a, dare I say, CPA plan to rehabilitate a building that's next door that could, who knows what might happen between now and then. But if we could put that on the docket, that would be great. Terrific. Moving on to policy. Ethan, is there anything else we should know about related to policy?
No, you guys saw the first or you guys saw the bullying prevention policy. We also looked over the bigger kind of 30,000 foot bullying prevention and intervention plan that is more of a kind of on the state level, but we'll be bringing that to you guys soon.
Terrific. Thank you. Paul, tell us about Fields.
Yeah, it's taken a little longer than we expected. Chris and I debriefed before. He's doing a good job leading that. So brochure design still waiting on the final specs, and then we send that out for bid. So fingers crossed, right? This is going to be the big information to find out what we get back. It's just getting late, right? So the timing is going to be difficult for this year. So we also have our eye on timing. On the HVAC system, Eversource did that analysis, right? And we're still waiting on them as well to get us information on the upgrades they see. And then also, and I'm still a little unclear, and I think Chris is looking into this. So exactly what we get from them based versus what we might have to talk about with Colliers, there's a lot of federal money now through the Inflation Reduction Act. And I think I just talked to Sarah Ross at Undaunted K-12, and there's another designation under the IRA that we qualify for. So it's an additional 10% off. So it's really looking like 50+% off of with federal funds. And if we ever want to do something like upgrade to the 21st century, now's the time to do it, right? And so that's where I think we want is Eversource to give us some information that maybe we parlay into and bigger analysis with Colliers, and then we can get a sense of what we need, right? Or somebody who knows to parse out, here's how much it would cost. Here's how much the federal savings and state savings are going to be. And so that we can plug and play geothermal, solar, add it all together, how much, And I will say Jack Sikowski with the climate change committee at Hadley has also been very active, and they want to work with us. He's invited us to several events now. So I think once we have these numbers, we can start talking with them as well.
Great. Thank you for that. Annie, will you sort of pull together all of these different resources when we have a report from Eversource? In terms of Colliers, Sarah Ross has been an incredible resource. I'd like to find a way to continue to engage her, as well as Eversource and our community, our Hadley Green Committee, as led by Jack. That might be a summertime thing, depending on when the report comes out. I'd like to know sooner rather than later, before going into the school year. I think, isn't the CPA process, I don't know that we'll need CPA funds for any of this. I don't know that we're eligible for it, but isn't the CPA process sometime in the September timeframe, September, October? So there's a
It is.
window.
It is a window. However, I would say that window probably, to your point, these would not be CPA eligible projects.
Right.
However, the timing still matters because we have to have this money encumbered, the ESSER 3 money encumbered
Yes.
by
Hmm.
September 2023. It doesn't have to be expended, but it must be encumbered. And encumbered meaning like signed contracts with people, not just we plan to use it for this purpose.
Yes,
So
and
there
we
is
know,
a looming timeline, and so it will be important this summer.
And he said 24 or 23.
September 24.
24. They have to be expended by fiscal year 25, June 30.
And
Yes,
that's,
June
I mean,
2025.
in capital spending projects and planning and, you know, multi-stakeholder design, that's tomorrow, right? A
Right.
year can go by like that. So thank you for moving up that conversation perhaps to the summer so that we can figure out what we're doing next.
Yeah.
That, and I think you, Mary, you said it too. That feels like that could be a really good conversation to have during the retreat if we have all information available between Colliers and coming up with a real solid plan. Like I feel like the last time we met, not that we're done with it, but we focused so heavily on equity, diversity, inclusion, and we've made leaps and bounds in the past year and a half. And I feel like there's a good, strong handle. Not that that won't continue, but I wonder, you know, if we were together for a few hours to kind of really focus on this and come up with a good plan and action plan to make it start working if timing works out.
Yes, indeed. It's time to turn our attention to infrastructure.
Yeah.
Very good. All right, moving on to announcements. The Select Board Liaison, Joyce Younglow, is not here today. I don't believe she's sent on any announcements through you, Annie. School committee member updates. Does anyone have any announcements they'd like to make? I have a brief announcement, and that is that we had an excellent April event called Suspect Citizens. The author of the book came and spoke to us at the Hadley Library, and we had Chief Mason and Lieutenant Cook both there, and it was such a productive conversation. TV5 or Hadley Media live streamed it, and also the recordings live on their channel. So if you're curious, I highly recommend checking that out. Also at that event, we announced that a team of Hopkins students is going to be holding an event in combination with Hadley Learns. And so I just want to share, because I would love for members of the Hopkins and Hadley Elementary School community to come out in support of this. But on May 9th, between 7 and 8:30, there will be a Zoom-only event. And I'm just going to read the paragraph out loud. It begins, "Never forget, never again. The Chinese oppression of Uyghur Muslims has been declared a human rights violation by the U.S. Holocaust Museum, the United Nations, and hundreds of independent organizations. It has been called a modern-day Holocaust, its horrors condemned in the news, but the Uyghurs are already familiar with their own persecution, and it did not cease when the media's attention did. It is our responsibility to show that the world has not forgotten and that genocide will not be allowed to happen again. The Hopkins Academy Diversity Club has worked on its part in remembering and helping others in the community gain a deeper understanding of the systemic, cultural, and physical genocide by China is part of that goal. The project has been completed with the help of Pema Zidig, who is a senior, Marley Higgins, who is an alum, Sarah Wright, a senior, Lucy Howard, also a senior, Emerson Thorpe, a first year, Saram Chowdhury, a first year, Ada Boucher, an alum, Alma Gorman, a junior, Palber Zidig, an eighth grader, Gabby Zijek, an alum, Amy Lanham, who's our esteemed faculty member and club advisor, Aisha Sheikh, who is an alum, Anna Dijek, who's a junior, and Rocky Buthe, who's a first year. So join us, please, if you can, on May 9th. Encourage the students by hearing their live presentation and joining into the subsequent conversation Q&A about abuses in Xinjiang. This project is something that the students began undertaking in 2020. And as a result, the overall group has a number of alumni who are out in the field, but they'll likely come back and present as part of the Zoom session. So I welcome you all to come be part of that. And there's a third annual Hadley World's Fair that'll be at the Senior Center this time on June 15th. It's the Thursday before Juneteenth, so there'll be soul food and lots of great music and games and celebration. So I welcome you all to come to that as well. That's it for my announcements. Moving on to the rest of the agenda items. We already talked about the calendar. Annie, there's nothing else you want to highlight for that, correct?
No, just families should know tomorrow is a delayed start early release day, and this Friday is a half day for Hopkins Academy only.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. I should add, by the way, to come to that event that students will be presenting at, or to come to the Hadley World's Fair, you should go to hadleylearns.com to find the event section and RSVP on either of those things. So action items, Park and Rec renovation proposal, we have already passed. The return of monies to the town, we've already passed. School calendar, library policy, the minutes. So approval of the minutes of March 27th, 2023. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Approval of the warrants of March 2023. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We've already accepted the donation, and we've already increased the accrued sick days for non-union personnel to 1.25 per month. Next meeting date is May 22nd. There'll be a policy subcommittee meeting at 4:30, and then the regular school committee meeting will begin at 5:30 p.m. We will not have an executive session tonight. And I think that's a wrap. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Excellent.
Great.
Aye.
That was a long agenda.